This week on MS Refresh, our topics, the death knell of Delve. Death knell, maybe? Plus some notable teams meeting updates, including the all-new music mode. All that and more. Subscribe to stay in the know. This is the MS Refresh Show. Hi there, and welcome to the Matt and Sean 365 Refresh Show. This is episode 29 for the work week of July 12th, 2021. Coming to the East Coast, coming to you from the East Coast. I am not the East Coast. My name is Matt Wade.
And coming from the West Coast, I am the West Coast. Sean Bugler.
Oh, all right, Mr. Coast. How you doing?
Good. I was just telling you before we went live, I was just doing a talk for the Minnesota Microsoft 365 user group. And
been there, done that. That's a fun one.
Yeah. Oh, it's I tweeted about it earlier. The community that they've built around that group is so good.
Yeah.
Like it's such a high quality user group. Now, like I love all user groups, but there's a special
I love them
spot.
all equally.
I couldn't possibly pick a favorite, but if I were gonna, no, and I think that, of course, Michelle Gilbert and the rest have done such a great job at bringing together personalities. I mean, there were 100 plus people and
That's
2
incredible
hour-long speakers. It is incredible.
Incredible.
Like, for those
Some
of you
of
who
these...
don't know, like 5 or 6 people show up at user groups.
Yeah, so that's one of them. There's a few of them that are just like even in the whole remote experience, new world, new normal, whatever you want to call it. It just blows my mind that there are just some like cities or areas that are so tight knit, and like, no offense to Minnesota, but like, hey, New York City, go ahead,
great way to lead any statement. no offense,
or Miami, or I don't know, like some of
the
big
Bay Area, or Redmond.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's like it just kind of blows my mind, but
it's a banner example of a user.
Yes, group. Yeah, they do a great job. And fun fact, Michelle Gilbert was actually the technical editor on my book.
Yeah, that's it's so easy to glaze over that. I think you did a great job of highlighting the work that went into it beyond, of course, you and Sven. Congratulations again on the book.
Yeah, she did a great job for us. I really appreciated the fact that she was willing to jump onto that, because that is not an easy thing. You got to go through and basically be like an encyclopedia checker, which ain't fun. But yeah, that group though has they have a really dedicated fan base and user base, whatever. And I compare it in my head to some of the ones that like were international what do you call it, conferences and stuff, where sure. Like I'd be presenting, and not that I'm complaining or anything, but like sometimes you get into a room and there's like 15 people there, and it's one of those big international like super hyped up things, and like now you can just show up at the second Wednesday of the month in Minnesota, and you got 115 people, and it's like, wow, that's crazy. Yeah. And Jamie's finally caught us live in Cough DC. Has some good user groups. Cough, which I was in DC for a while. That is true. There were some good ones, but not as good as hers. And there is at this point.
Well, you know what the barometer is for a good user group? It's inviting you and I to speak.
Yes, that is my standard, definitely.
How's everything on your side of the fence? You doing all right?
Yeah. Just, I don't know, chugging along. This is summer has been nice until we started getting a bunch of rain as of late. So I don't know. Nothing really new.
I think that's probably to your benefit. I mean, coming off of writing a book.
That's true, yeah. Which, fun fact, this week in the lots of fun facts this week. This week on the roadmap, not a whole lot new either. So we're kind of, I'm riding the same train as Microsoft is with
everybody's taking a deep breath. I'm calling it now. This is the deep breath week.
Yeah, right. Definitely.
All right, well, you ready to rock?
I was just going to say, why don't we kick off? We'll hit you up into the news and we'll go from there.
Let's do it.
Ready?
This is the news.
The SharePoint Admin Center is getting some exciting new features. In a blog post shared late last week by RK Menon, It was announced that, among other things, the SharePoint Admin Center would be picking up enhanced dashboard insights, new details on where new sites were created, SharePoint root site replacement, and of course, OneDrive management features are now fully incorporated. RK also joined everybody's favorite senior product manager, Mark Cashman, on the latest episode of the Intrazone to talk about the new changes. If you haven't listened just yet, I highly recommend it. We'll drop a link in the show notes. Breakout rooms and Teams meetings will soon allow presenters
I got it. We're good.
Breakout rooms and Teams meetings will soon allow select presenters to manage the breakout rooms. That means that all you teacher assistants that wish you could help your teachers and admin assistants who schedule meetings for executives don't have to depend entirely on one person to make these work. Coming this month, organizations will pick up the ability to brand the Teams meeting pre-join and lobby screens. To date, branding has been limited to custom backgrounds, but with this new change, tenant admins will be able to upload their company logo to the Teams admin portal. In line with previous efforts to support multiple brands, multiple logos can in fact be uploaded at once and assigned to specific people or groups as needed. The final barrier between us and Microsoft Teams karaoke has fallen. Music mode. Music mode, as it's officially called, can be used to, quote, transmit high-fidelity music. Users will be able to conduct online music lessons, transmit music performances, or other non-speech content. Rollout is expected to begin later this month, with a full release including those party animals at the Department of Defense in late September. Microsoft warns the feature is bandwidth intensive and not recommended for regular Teams meetings. The company also advises no Bluetooth headphones and no Freebird. Project Nucleus, Microsoft's branded name for the improved Microsoft List performance and offline access, appears to be edging closer to release, but will no longer hit its expected July release date. According to a post in the Message Center, the new expected rollout window is from August, running through September. A much anticipated update to Microsoft Lists is just about here, if another recent Message Center update is to be believed. Custom list templates, which would allow organizations the ability to create their own custom list templates with custom formatting and schema, visible right alongside the default Microsoft provided templates currently available. Unfortunately, to start, Matt, you're going to love this, custom templates can only be created using what? PowerShell.
Gooey.
It's expected that a UI solution is in the works as well. There's been a lot of movement around user profiles in the Microsoft Graph lately, and you can add another feature to the mix, this one user-facing. Beginning rollout in August, quoting from the roadmap, users in the organization will be able to add topics directly to their profile card in Microsoft 365 apps and services or through Office Delve, end quote. Currently, it appears that the update's aim is to improve search results more broadly. Search a skill, project, or other keyword, find a user. But between this and the recently announced organization viewer in Outlook, it's worth wondering if there are some bigger changes afoot. Finally, last week, Yammer canceled its upcoming official communities deliverable. While it's not fully clear what this meant, or what it was meant to be for that matter, we can surmise that, similar to org-wide teams, official communities would be blue-checked Yammer communities that employees could trust as authoritative and run by subject matter experts on a topic or a project. No word as to why it was canceled, but if you're a Yammer shop, if anyone's ever called themselves that before, you might want to know.
That was the news.
Nice. Alrighty. Hey, thanks, Sean. That was great.
Yeah, thank you. Get out of here, blue screen.
So I will be completely frank. I was really bored by the listing of items this week.
How dare you? I worked hard on that.
Excited by any of them. It has nothing to do with you.
I'm taking
your
offense
megaphone
anyways.
was significantly better than what I had to read from the website. But what is something that stood out for you this week?
You know, I kind of allude to it in the news. I think it's really interesting what's happening or what might be happening around the graph and user profiles. It strikes me that they've been investing a lot in it as of recently. I don't know if you follow Bill Bear on Twitter, but he's the Microsoft search guy now.
Yep.
And he's been active. There's been a lot to talk about with respect to Microsoft search, specifically user profiles. And I think that it strikes me that we haven't heard much of anything about Delve. They name check it in that, but I mean, even the name, like they call it Office Delve. I mean, what has held on to the Office moniker at this point? You know what I mean? Except for Microsoft Office.
Yeah, you're right. But for some reason, maybe I'm thinking a Lens that went from Office Lens to Microsoft Lens. I was maybe because I am thinking that Delve did go to Microsoft Delve, but I could be wrong on that one.
I mean, they're name checking it as Office Delve, but then again,
oh, are they? Okay.
It would not be the first time that somebody hasn't gotten the memo about a product name change within the ship.
Definitely true. Oh yes, yeah, it's a very large ship. That's I don't know. Profile pages just make so much sense to me. And don't get me wrong, I love the cards, but I look at the cards as a convenience, not as like an encyclopedic source. And even if the convenience still shows me the same information as the encyclopedic source, then okay. But I don't know. I would really not like if they took those pages away, just because I can.
And I don't think they're going to like get rid of them, but I do think that we're due up for,
Delve
a reimagining of. I mean, we know that they're keeping it around. It got one of the new fancy Fluent logos.
I was just gonna say, can I justify its existence based on the fact that it got an icon like a year and a half late?
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
It's the only reason I think Sway is sticking around.
Yeah, right. Oh, seriously, yeah. And I like Sway too. I don't know.
So, I mean, I think that it's going to be around, but I think that we're due up for something. You get a sense, and I just saw a question in there, are there going to be any big announcements at Inspire? I wouldn't be surprised if we see some hints towards an underlying shift in, really bringing the graph to the forefront and, whether it's quietly setting the Delve brand off to the side or, completely painting over it with a brand new look and feel. Mm-hmm. I think that we're due up for something bigger. You know what I mean? Yeah,
no, I hear you. Yeah, I guess there's not a whole ton to be said there, but the progress on the cards is nice. And the problem though with the topics, they're great. Being a knowledge management guy, you spend a lot of time doing that kind of thing. You want to be able to find expertise. There's got to be like a better way to get people to actually populate that stuff though. That's the biggest issue is convincing people it's worth it. And then upkeeping it, deleting old stuff and adding new things as they become skilled in things. Like if I haven't used Microsoft Access is a great example. That came up at work a couple weeks ago, and somebody's asked me for some support on it. And I'm like, I know I'm on the O365 team, but like I haven't used that. I literally did the math, and I'm like, in 20 years, I'm old enough to now say that I haven't used a piece of software in 2 decades, and like that would not go on my topic card. And if it was there, I would remove it immediately because I'm just not qualified to talk about it anymore.
Sure.
And I don't know. You can do contests. You can do, like prove to us that you put 5 topics on there or 5 items on there, and we'll enter into a drawing for a gift card or something. But I don't know. There's just not a great way to do that kind of thing.
No, and Microsoft's between a rock and a hard place there. Because I mean, you could feasibly say like you log in and it's like, hey, it's been a while since you've updated your thing, but I can already hear my CTO and my people at my organization going, stop talking to me.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. That's just a notification I don't want to see anymore. And they just turn it off and nobody ever does anything with it, especially the C's out there, because they don't want people to, or not, they don't want people to know what they know, but like they don't need to be randomly reached out to for Excel help.
They've got nothing to prove. They've already made it to the top of the mountain.
Yeah. No, exactly. No, that's totally true. So yeah, I guess we'll see what happens there.
What about you? What's going on in your world? What are you thinking?
So, talk to me about this music mode thing. The description said something about music lessons, and like I don't know how many times I saw like the joke videos online of like, oh, the chorus can't meet because of COVID, so they try to do a Zoom call, and guess what? It didn't work. Like, first off, how are they going to deal with DRM? And like, is this the kind of thing where I can just be on a Teams meeting on my Mac and I can just turn to I was going to say iTunes, Apple Music, and just play a song that I have because I happen to have an Apple Music license or what do you call it? A subscription?
Yeah, candidly, do I think that they're even thinking about DRM? No. I think that this is them rising to meet what is both a glaring hole in their offering, which is letting anything other than boring work meetings happen, and rising to the occasion to meet something that Zoom has had for, as far as I know, 7 or 8 months now. Like Zoom has had high fidelity inputs, and the ability to disable, echo cancellation and things to that effect. The things that work great for meetings are horrible for broadcasting music.
I see.
Microsoft compresses things. They, I mentioned the echo cancellation. And on top of that, I mentioned like the compression. Teams is already a really bandwidth intensive application.
Totally. Oh yeah.
And so it's to Microsoft's benefit that they don't punch through to the level of fidelity that music would necessarily require. So it's going to be interesting. I think that this is something they had to do. They were up against a wall. They weren't supporting a thing that their direct competitor is doing,
and probably does well.
Yeah,
do they? The screenshot that you had in the news with there was a little icon on the toolbar. Did you make that, or was that an actual screenshot?
That's the
from
actual
the
screenshot.
Center?
Yeah, so it's going to be right in the little ... context menu.
Oh, all right. So in the drop down or across the top, will you have to click something to show that icon?
I believe it's in the little the ellipses menu.
The ellipses. Oh, okay. All right, that would be good.
That's my understanding of it.
I thought, or your screenshot, I think, had a little eighth note on the bar itself, and like there's only so much space in that bar, and they're going to be adding more features over time, and like the last thing we need to do is be putting that on the bar. I think
they're going to have it up actively when it's on, but only because
as
they
an
want
indication
people to turn it off.
I'm fine with.
That's my understanding of it. In fact, I got a little bit of a download on it when I was sitting through the Minnesota Microsoft 365 user group session. They were talking about it.
Shout out.
Yeah,
right,
but no. So
cool.
I think that it's one of those things that I think I'm never going to use, but then I think about the first like 3 or 4 months of the pandemic, like every meeting that I ran, the starter music for it, I had hold music, I had Daybreak playing. I have to see if I can dig it up. But for me, the goofballs of the universe are super excited that we can suddenly put entire Microsoft Teams meetings, to Muzak.
Right, and the only thing I can relate to there is the goofballs also that got super excited about custom backgrounds because they all ended up being either in the office meeting or a conference room or on the Simpsons couch. And it was funny for about 26 seconds at the beginning of a meeting. But after that, like, come on, guys, like, seriously. But
as people thought that this was a virtual background out of Better Homes and Gardens. And
I know. Yeah.
This is where I live.
I'm pretty sure Martha Stewart was involved before or after her prison break time. We're not sure, but
Oh yeah. No.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So that's what I had. So why don't we jump into a couple questions? I have one that I am ready to just pounce on. Oh, that's not the one I was going to pounce on, but that's a good one too. All right, so I'm going to take this one on. So we have a question here: is there still a business need for Yammer and Microsoft Teams and/or SharePoint? And the quick answer I'm going to say is depends if you're in Europe or not, because Europe sees zero value in Yammer for whatever reason. I think it's WhatsApp being the communication way of choice.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I never really got that. Because WhatsApp and Yammer are not something that relate. But whenever I talk to people over there, they're always like, "Oh yeah, nobody touches Yammer over here." And second, we have WhatsApp. Why would we need Yammer? It's like they're not really compatible or comparable in my opinion. But that's not for me to judge. But I figured I would share because I actually have this kind of thing ready to go. Let's pull this up. So there are very different use cases for Yammer and Teams. So Teams is really good for, like, imagine you're in a conference room with the people you're doing work with. Everybody's heads down doing their job. Every so often you gotta get up and say, "Hey, Sean, do you know the answer to this question?" Or "How do I get through to finance to make sure that I get XYZ out of this and I can actually, finish this contract?" But then you have the situation where, like, I wonder who at this company knows the process of getting that contract going. And then you kind of like walk out into the cafeteria and you just yell out, "Who in here knows how to do this?" That's the difference between Teams and Yammer. Teams is the conference room. Yammer is the cafeteria, where you can kind of ask open-ended questions to people. It's even now got the upvote system and the correct answer or the right answer marker. So it's really sort of almost like a modern version of a discussion board, that kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
And this is a super common question. A lot of people don't really understand the difference between these things. But then the other thing is the use cases. So if you have any sort of connection to knowledge management, communities of practice are a big deal, affinity groups, user groups. So that could be all the project managers in your organization who report through like 19,000 different hierarchies, but they all do the same job, right? The same, deliverable and have to follow the same policies that are sort of agreed to among the project managers. Sure. That's a really great place for this, where the project managers come together, they can share best practices, information, all that kind of stuff. Can teams do that? Sure. But the chats don't like bubble up based on popularity. They also don't have the sort of the answer, the upvote, any of those concepts. So there are a lot of differences.
Too heavy for that.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. Which is why I've never really understood the concept of org-wide teams. I get the whole, communication use case, but like Yammer is a communication use case. So like if you're not in the government cloud, which doesn't have Yammer, I don't know why you wouldn't use Yammer for this stuff, other than like, okay, it's another app you have to get people to, but now that you can add the communities app to teams, like, I don't really see the difference there. But anyway, I figured I'd take that on because that's one that pops up all the time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's an interesting one. And I think that, you talked about this idea of like, WhatsApp, and it doesn't necessarily feel like they hold the same space. But, if there's anything I've learned in my 3 weeks of return to economics, it's that you don't get to decide what the substitute products are. The market does.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Oh, that's true. And I can push as hard as I want, but if I'm going to be, whether I'm successful or not, it's a totally different story. Definitely.
So this is an interesting one here. During update emails I get from Microsoft, they keep mentioning different security things. I don't understand what most of these mean. Are they important enough to hire Fiverr? I would say just as a broad...
Sean, are you on Fiverr? Because
I'm not on Fiverr yet.
You might want to be.
We should do Cameo. I'll say as a broad statement that hiring anybody from Fiverr for a security related something is probably not the best move.
That's probably true.
I think that by and large, there's very little in the Microsoft universe that you can't, sit down with a little bit of time on your hands, do a little bit of digging, reach out to people like Matt and myself, Eric Tully. There are people out there that, have a good sense for at least where to start. And I think that that's a good place to start. So I think at a high level, it's okay to outsource, but I think Fiverr you run a lot of risks there with, you get what you pay for to some degree.
Yeah. I'm not a security, I don't know. I don't want to say conscious person, but like, that's not my expertise. And I always check out Eric Tully and Joanne Klein's, and to this point now, Drew Madelung too. He used to be really on the OneDrive side of things, but he's sort of rebranded himself a bit as a security and compliance guy. But yeah, I would always go to their blogs or their social media pages. And, if you're lucky, you can ask even, and you might get a response. I don't know. I'm not... The whole hiring somebody to do this usually isn't the kind of thing that you just have somebody come in for like a half hour each week to just update you on. It's usually going to be like a legitimate contract and work and kind of thing. So I don't really have a recommendation for that one. I don't know, Sean.
I'll tell you what I usually do, because I know exactly the kinds of emails you're talking about. I think where you get notifications that like there's been a mass deletion event, and of course all of that's relative.
Yeah.
Like if somebody's never deleted anything, or if a department's never deleted anything, and then suddenly somebody deletes 10 files off of that trips it. What I usually do in those circumstances, if I've never gotten the email before, is I just take the subject line of the email, because they're pretty straightforward, and I just drop it into Google, swoop it with quotes, and I see what's out there. Because I think by and large, content in the tech community, blog posts, I think there's a lot of really great stuff that'll help get you on the right track.
I agree.
Google's your best friend.
You can't be giving away our trade secrets with just, throwing errors and quotes and Googling them. That's really, you're kind of hitting our bread and butter here, man.
Suddenly our pay rates just dropped by 20%.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything jump out to you?
Let's see. Oh, you know what? Actually, I liked Phil's comment here about HR systems. pushing the skills and topics is really the only way to do it right, especially since like they have all the resumes and all the things that are listed on the resumes. And like, that's really just metadata. But, you know, if you're an organization of 10,000 and your organization does not keep that information in a database someplace, they're not going to do that by hand. Right. So you have to kind of think through that and either plan ahead and, you know, plan for the added work that it's going to take to push it out. But then it's still the update process, right? Like people aren't just going to go in to update their, you know, like, I don't know, their resume to add more items that can get pulled out into this database or something that then gets pushed out to topics. So,
you know, one thing I thought is interesting and what I would be willing to bet happens in the next year or so is, you know, LinkedIn already has an integration between it and Microsoft 365. A lot of people don't know, but you can click on a people card and you can associate a LinkedIn profile with an internal user, you know. And there's convenient mechanisms to that, but I think an extension of that could very well be skills.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely. Actually, can you import them from LinkedIn? Yeah,
no, not yet.
No,
Well, and that's what I'm predicting. I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
You heard it here first.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I've got for today. Like I said, today was kind of a slow week. I don't know if there are any other last minute comments you want to pull up, but
yeah, I'm going to pull this one up here. This is any success stories of reintroducing Yammer to an org? No. You know, and it's not to say that it cannot be done. I have success stories of old Yammer to new Yammer. I've seen that happen.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But I think that, you know, when you think about, this is no different than like an intranet failing. I give a talk that I love, Matt. This is the one you love too, which is, you know, one unique user and how I rebuilt my SharePoint story and how you can rebuild yours. The logic is there that people lose trust in something. You know, there's the Field of Dreams quote: "If you build it, they will come." Well, if they show up and nobody's there,
what's the point of returning?
They're not coming back.
Yeah.
And it's really, really difficult to sell that narrative. And so it has to be deliberate effort. It has to be led from the top. Like there has to be executive leadership there. Like I'm not usually one to say everything requires lead from the top strategy. It's nice when they care. But the reality is that few and far between do. But if you're going to try and bring something back and nothing substantial has changed, there's no new benefit proposition, you really have, it has to be a full court press from the organization. The execs have to be on board. There have to be clearly defined value propositions, whether they are, you know, Matt, you highlighted the CEO connection, this idea that there could be like AMAs, clearly defined topics of interest where there are dedicated subject matter experts. So like an Excel group with, you know, somebody who is no kidding going to make sure that an Excel question gets answered. You kind of have to Substack it a little bit. And what I mean by that is like Substack basically just had to like pay a bunch of writers to write for Substack for like 2 years in order to get people to go like, okay, like Substack's a real thing.
Right.
You have to do that enterprise wise. And what I mean by that is like, you have to go, not necessarily pay them with money, although you could, like you have to go incentivize people to go out of their way to do a little bit more work so that other people see value. You have to essentially force the flywheel, and that's really hard to do. You can do it, but it's a lot of work.
Yep. Yeah. And I think it's important to set aside the resource internally, one, multiple, whatever, where like just like your SharePoint instance probably has an intranet manager or maybe multiple, or somebody who they may not have that official title, but that's what they do. Mm-hmm. You kind of have to have that communities manager also to kind of play police officer a bit, because in my experience, I've seen, especially in larger organizations, conversations can just get off the rail sometimes. And like, you kind of have to introduce to the management chain that there's actually an expectation of them to hold their people accountable. Shocking. Mm-hmm. That just because they're in this new online experience doesn't mean that it's not the same thing. That if they post something that's, I mean, you can say like offensive, but just like snotty, let's say, and causing strife among people, that's no different than if they wrote it on a sign and hung it up on the main hallway of your HQ, right? Like you would hold that person accountable. but that transition from, that the analog hanging up a poster to this basically internal Facebook doesn't really register a lot. And I see it in multiple places that I've worked at or worked for or consulted at, that they're not prepped for that. And they don't see that as the management chain will just moan about how bad that thing is because people aren't under control. And it's like, well, you need to have a person managing it. Right. It's not their job to manage it, but it's their job to manage the people is what I'm saying. And like, if the manager of the community, the Yammer command manager will say, like, comes back to a, person manager, people manager, and says like, hey, Sally Smith did this and said this to so-and-so, like, you should do something about that or deal with this somehow. Right. They need to actually take that and like be accountable, and hold their people accountable. Yeah, exactly. Which is difficult to get across to management. I've seen in my life. And then the best way to kind of bring Yammer into the fold is one, the communities app and teams, but also like, one of the consulting roles I did, we showed the all company feed on the homepage of the new intranet. So like, we sort of introduced the concept of Yammer as a thing and said like, oh, this is where you go. So click here to go see the rest of it. And you can create groups and like, like you said, user groups in Excel, that's always the big one that,
of course,
seems to pop up. Yeah, exactly. So if you can kind of show the value there and introduce the fact that you can create more, you can totally do it. I think, but
I've got one more I'm going to throw up here.
Yep.
Because I know that this is one that you relate to some degree. And this is topical because the talk that I gave for the Minnesota M365 user group was how to build a Microsoft 365 training program from the inside.
Yep.
So, Matt, you've gone on the record as saying, Viva as a collective is, not so much a new thing as it is just a repackaging, for more money. And to some degree, that's true. And likewise, Viva Learning as just another attempt to sell LinkedIn Learning license, also true. But yeah, I think it's more than that. I think that is the driver of a lot of the decisions that they've made. I think that they built it around LinkedIn Learning, and I'm sure that LinkedIn Learning is going to get a huge boost from that. And I agree. I think it's hilarious that LinkedIn Learning just refers to Microsoft as a partner.
That's ridiculous.
Nobody's buying that.
Right. That's insane.
But I genuinely believe that Viva Learning has a really, really great path in front of it to improve the learning programs of small to medium businesses.
Boy, this show must get really boring because I completely agree with you. Of the 4 Viva modules, I think learning is the one that has like the most impact. Like connections, hello Yammer meets SharePoint in Teams. Like no change, 0 delta between what you had before and what you have after Viva came out. But learning at least is actually going to bring together, if you use an LMS, either like in an organization where you have to do required trainings or you want to learn more and there are internal trainings that are available, or you are a student or a professor or a teacher and you need to be able to post your lessons and whatnot. Like the connection from, between Coursera and Blackboard and a couple of those other big ticket LMSs out there, like that's a really big integration, especially if I can go to my Viva Learning tab or app in Teams and it pulls up like all the stuff that's relevant to me. Like here are the things that you owe soon. Here are the things that are currently trending. Here are the things that you might like based on your history. And it goes out and grabs that data from 4, 5, 6 different places. That's actually pretty sweet, I think.
Including custom content. I don't think people talk about this enough, that you can, just in the same way you can create an organizational assets library, you're going to be able to create a dedicated space where content stored is imbued into LinkedIn Learning. So you can bring in your own in-house training. Yeah. You don't have to buy into an LMS. You get value from it, but it also plugs into Microsoft Learn. There's some really great stuff there. And I think as an extension we saw here, interesting how Microsoft, is all about hiding HR systems. And 100%.
I mean, I don't want to go to HR systems.
They suck.
They do. I don't want to go to ADP. I don't want to go to Oracle. I don't want to go to SAP. I just want to see it in a way that like actually looks good and I don't have to like leave my comfort zone.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that, if you take a look at, thank God I wasn't around for it, but when ERPs really became a thing, ERP systems became a thing, they came around because it was all about, obfuscating these BS finance systems and letting IT really kind of take over and drive that and really kind of take control of the IT part of that conversation. And ERP systems, despite how clunky and terrible most of them are, it's a night and day difference from where we were. And that's exactly what these employee experience platforms are going to be for these HR and learning and development platforms.
Yeah. Oh, it's totally the finance systems, those HR systems, especially the ones that are like either built on a shoddy template or were custom developed, that made me absolutely despise Oracle over the course of my working career. Just saying the word makes me want to throw up in my mouth.
They deserve all of it.
Right, it's insane. It's just so bad. Just such a bad user experience. But I don't know. So, all right. So let's, I think that's probably about it for today. So I think we'll probably take this on for the next week. So thank you everybody so much for watching. As always, a like and subscribe is much appreciated, and leave a comment below to start the discussion. Add to the live show comments that you see here. Sean, thank you so much for joining me as always.
Yeah,
and
thanks of course to all of you who joined us live. It seems like every week we get a bigger and bigger number. We appreciate y'all joining.
Yeah, totally. And can't wait to hang out with you next week along with everybody else. And we'll see you then. Take care.